Hello, welcome to Elvenhome, and to this edition, which focuses on the next stages on the pub, a closer look at how I made or make benches to go inside the pub, and also finally things have started to arrive that I mentioned in the previous videos, and I take a closer look at the first steps at beginning to complete the hard standing and the ballasting around the depot. So let's get straight into the video and take you to a couple of weeks ago when I was beginning to work more on the build of the pub. Well, time to bring you up to date with the scratch build of the pub and the work that I've been doing. What I will do a bit later in the video is show you how I went about making this, which is one of the benches that will be going, let's see if I can get it to focus on that, thank you, which will be one of the benches that will be going inside the pub, and is made up of 5 pieces of various sizes of strip styrene. So you'll see how that got to be made, or the second one being made, a bit later in the video. I've also been busy painting figures. I do love painting figures. They're really very sweet little things, and I've even had some couples. If I bring this in, can I get this to focus? There we go. And I think there is a video that I did a while ago about how I go about painting figures. One of the things that I used this time round was more of the Vallejo colours. Just get a bit more focus there. And if I move up, you'll see the range of colours sitting at the back there. I do like the Vallejo colours. They go on very well, and they've got a really nice pigment to them. So you don't have to paint too much. I didn't have to prime these figures. The paint went straight on and took very well, which was good fun. The back wall, or the wall of the skittle alley, has now been painted, although I noticed this morning that a bit of it had come off, so a dab of black needs to go back on. And that's the thing that's going to form the back wall of the pub and sit on the back there. And the roof has been painted. The windows have all been painted an off-white colour, ready to be put in, and you saw the interior last time round. I've now cut the card that will form the roof, and I'll talk very briefly in a moment about how I think I'm now going to run the wiring. But to give you an idea, I've put this is a much brighter light than will actually be in here. But if I bring this up to the if I bring this up to the camera, and we put the light in there. Come on, play ball. There we go. You begin to see how the light will be inside, if I get it right, and to give an image of the pub, which will be fine. The insert card at the moment is plain, and I need to find the right kind of colour for the roof. Those of you who may remember the days when people used to smoke in pubs will also remember the rather interesting shade of yellow that most pub ceilings were. So I need to find something that can give me that kind of seedy look. What I intend to do is to put a number of these benches inside to provide the seating for people to put on. And at the back, there will be one long bench across the whole length of this wall for people to sit on that are playing skittles. And I want to try and see if I can find some way to fashion, in a very rough way, tables that will sit in front of them, but we'll have to see. You'll see that I've started painting the outside. I think that's how it's going to end up, looking all really rather shabby and tired. And I am going to put this floor in. There will be a gap here to allow wires to come up through the base, and one of the wires, because I'm going to be using the Woodland Scenic's nano lights, which those of you who remember the build of the hotel were the very small lights that I used to light each of the lobby floors that you can see through the front window of the hotel. One of them will stretch across here and be inserted through a small hole here to provide the light for this part. I think I may site that so that it's at the side of the interior. If I remove the this for a moment, which it should come out fairly straightforwardly. I think what I'm going to do is have the light coming through the ceiling about here. So the light will be masked by this wall, but will give light, enough light into the pub itself, and I think that will work okay. Similarly, there will be the cutout, and there will be a hole in the back wall here to allow me to put the nano light through into provide light for the skittle alley, which I may try and fix to the ceiling in some way, but equally I may not. The whole purpose of doing it this way is that if any of those lights fail, the roof is going to be completely removable, and I'll be able to get into these two lights, but it does mean that there's a proper ceiling cover, which should all help with stopping light bleed. To do the roof, what I'm proposing to do is to create the roof with two pieces that exactly match these end walls, and the roof will be slightly longer with barge boards attached to the roofing pieces, so that these walls essentially slide in between the barge board at the top and the inner wall, and that should make it nice and snug. It should also correct one very slight bend that I've got with this wall from the paint, but that was the only slight bit of warping that happened when I painted, so I was quite pleased with that, because you may recall from the last video I was a little troubled about using paint on the exterior because it might cause the whole thing to warp. But I've had no problem other than that very slight bit at the top, and I think that was my fault for not strengthening it as it dried. But the paint does give it does have a very rough textured effect, which works really, really nicely, and avoids the printed effect that you get with texture sheets, try it as you might, or the plasticky look that you get with bricks. So I'm really pleased with the way that's come out. So that's the update for this video on this build, but there will be a short section, or a section, a bit later in the video, showing you how I went about making the benches. Hello and welcome to 2 to Watch, where I showcase 2 other Engage YouTube channels that I enjoy watching. Both channels this week are ones that I've come across only relatively recently. The first of these is Pork Chop Express. Kevin started his channel only in August of this year. He's put up so far 9 videos showing the development of his Engage layout. In the time he's come a long way in building his layout. His collections of locomotives and rolling stock is growing alongside the layout with a good mix of traction. If you want a good demonstration of the perils of working with animals, you might enjoy watching his video from the 24th of September this year, where his dog decided to get in on the act. It's guaranteed to raise a smile, and I applaud Kevin's perseverance in completing the recording. I'm enjoying watching him as he develops the scenic work and develops the plan for the layout, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the layout develops over the coming months. The second channel today is Engage Shelf Layouts. This is a channel I only came across about 3 months ago. It's been putting videos up for about 2 years. And I'm enjoying this channel because it concentrates, as the name suggests, on building smaller layouts. I first came across the channel when I saw a video looking at building a Scale Scenes garage kit. Now, Scale Scenes kits look very good indeed, and I've downloaded quite a few over the years, but for some reason I've never got on with them. So I was particularly interested to see somebody else going about building one of their kits, and a thoroughly good job he made of it. I'm looking forward to seeing what else may appear on this channel. It's good to see how people who enjoy building smaller layouts go about getting detail and other things into these smaller built layouts. All of that is useful as ideas for things that I may be able to use in particular parts as I develop Elvenhome. So this week, 2 relatively new channels to me, for you to go and have a look at after the video, and I hope subscribe. As ever, I will put links to both channels in the description below this video. And that brings 2 to Watch to an end for this episode. In this section, I'm going to show you how I constructed the little bench that you see in front of you. This bench was originally intended to go into a particular part of the pub, but once I'd finished it, it was ever so slightly too long, so it will now go somewhere else. All the benches will be bespoke for wherever I eventually decide to place them. What I'm going to do now is to create the 2 benches that are going to sit along the back wall of the pub. Each bench is going to be about 3 centimetres or 30 millimetres long. I'm using millimetres rather than inches because once you start getting into tenths of an inch, or as evergreen styrene has them, percentages of an inch, not percentages, decimals of an inch, it all gets rather silly. So, in front of you, you will see the 4 strips of plasticard which makes up each bench. To start with the seat, first of all, that's this piece of strip styrene, which is 1.5 millimetres by 2.5 millimetres thick. And that is the thing that forms the seat. Sitting behind it, to form the cushion back, is a piece that is 1 millimetre deep by 4 millimetres high. Sitting behind that is strip styrene card that is 0.5 millimetres thick, and I've cut a strip that is 6 millimetres deep, and that goes on to form the back of the bench. And then this piece is used to form the 2 end pieces to give armrests for the end, and this is 0.75 millimetres deep by 2 millimetres high. So what I'm going to do now is I'll move the camera slightly, get on with the business of cutting the pieces out for the 2 benches, and use either fast forward or cross dissolves to take you through the process until I have the 2 benches made. And then I'll talk briefly about the process of painting them. I paint the benches after I've made them, because with all the cutting you're going to get white ends, and you probably will damage any paint, particularly with styrene, which the paint can flake off quite easily. So you might just as well build the things and then paint them. So I'll just move the camera, we'll glide across to a new screen after I've moved the camera and start work on cutting the pieces. Well, as you can see, that is the benches made. I think that took me about 10 minutes to make the two of those. What I will do now, I've got to let these dry fully. I must be careful. I'll let these dry fully, and then I will have a look with a file just to make sure that all the edges are straight and clean. And then I'm going to paint it. Now the benches were painted. The brown there is just the mahogany brown that you see me use elsewhere in the pub, so that makes sense. The red is a mix of the Vallejo flat red, which I've used on some of the, if I bring them over here, is a mixture of these two colours. So I will mix some of that up and paint the benches. Because these are have these nice ridges on them, it's actually quite easy to paint these with the different colours without needing to mask things up. It's really quite a straightforward thing to do all that, because essentially the back and the sides are all brown and the front, and it's the internal bit of the bench that's red, and that is not too difficult to paint. So what I will do is I will go away and paint them and then let you see them once they're painted. Well, there you can see the two benches in their place, and which they're still drying, so I haven't put any of the little people on them yet. I'm going to have some of the figures that I've painted up, I think there's 11 or 12 of them, will be in the back here, and some also in the front towards the windows. So hopefully you will be able to see it, but whether you can see it or not, I will know they're there. So that's how I made the benches. All I've got to do now is work out the floor plan and make probably, I would think, 4 or 5 more. But as you saw, they're very straightforward to make, and they really don't take long to paint. I think I've probably in total been working on these for about half an hour from the moment I started doing the recording to the moment that you're seeing this here. So with that, let's get on to the next section. At the end of the last video, I was talking about the developments that I intend to put in here, putting in some hard standing and completing the ballasting. And I was waiting on a number of things to arrive before I could start doing that, which they did. And then I've been very busy on other things connected with the Bowness and Kinneil Railway and the Scottish Railway Preservation Society. So I've not got as far as I wanted, but I have in the last few days managed to do a test that I needed to do, and also start to use some of the things that have arrived. And I'll just bring you up to date now with where we are on the work that I hope over the next week or two I'll be able to complete in this area. The first thing was the test that I wanted to do on the ballast that I've bought, which is the Legacy Ballast by DCC Concepts. If I can just get the box. You'll see in front of you a piece of track, or 3 pieces of track. This is the ballast that I was waiting to arrive, to go along with the dark Legacy ballast that I've also bought, which is Steam Shed Era, which is that one. And I'll be using a combination of these two for this area. Now, as you know, I prefer to use Ballast Magic. I just prefer to do that. But I needed to test, because this is a different ballast to what I've been using, what sort of ratio I needed. The recommended ratio for ballasting by Ballast Magic, they say 1 to 7. So 1 part Ballast Magic to 7 parts ballast, which I tried. And you can see the 1 to 7 mix here, which went straight off almost as it had dried solidly, but as you can see, it didn't fix very well. The one above, I mean, it wasn't the neatest piece of ballasting in the world, but I wanted to test adhesion, was a 1 to 5 mix. And that's worked really well. I'm pleased with that. So I'll be using the 1 to 5 mix for the whole of this side, from the viaduct up the top all the way down, and then so the light stuff will be on these 3 lines, and then it'll start to mix as it goes through here, possibly some of the lighter stuff at the back, or I might use some of the ballast that I used right on the back track, just to show how it all mixes as it gets through to the mucky area where the steam locomotives will be standing and being cleaned out and all of those sorts of things. To do the hard standing, I'll see if this works. I came up with an idea that I didn't want to be trying to play around with plaster and to create some hard standing, but the track height is such that a piece of 2mm board brings you up level with the sleepers, and then a 1mm level on top of that brings you up pretty much level with the tops of the chairs that are holding the rail. So what I'm doing first of all is to take a rubbing of the layout of the track, so that when I come to cut the 1mm card, I can use this as a template. What I haven't written on here is where the hard standing is going to be. The hard standing is going to run from about here up to there. It will come across here, run up to just beyond the end of this paper to there, and then run back, because that's where the sheds are. The rest is going to be either ballast material, or I may use some of the Javis ash material, because it wouldn't be ballast. The whole of this would not be ballast. Some of this will just be normal ground, which has become very dirty. And I want to try and get that mix. There will be ballast around the track, because the track has to be properly supported, but I'm not going to ballast the whole of this area. So we'll see what that looks like when it comes out. I've already had a test cut of a piece of 2mm board, and here you can see a piece of it here, and I probably will put it in at this kind of width, and then cut the piece that will go either side of it more accurately using my template which I've created there. And as you'll see, if you line that up against the track, it's level with the tops of the sleepers, and when I put the 1mm card on top, that will line up nicely with the edge of the track, and I think that will give me a good look, but I'll know once I actually have a go at doing it. And that is the order of the day for the next week or two. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to show you some progress in all of that by the time you come and see me in a fortnight's time. The other thing is that my 8F, or one of my 8Fs, is on its way to me. It's going to arrive actually tomorrow, which is when this video will be going public, and so is a sound chip. I've not yet had notice that the 8F that's sound fitted in LMS Crimson Lake is on its way, but I know other people are starting to receive them. So for the next video, there definitely will be 2 sound fitted 8Fs chuffing around the layout. So that's something to look forward to in a fortnight's time. And with that, that really brings this edition of Elvenhome to an end. Please, if you've liked the video, give it a thumbs up. That's always very helpful. If you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe. It will be great to have you along. Please, if you have any comments, please do let me have your comments. I always like receiving them and responding to them. But that's it really. And until I speak to you again in a fortnight's time, that's bye-bye from me. Bye-bye.